So, hello everybody. Today we're doing another unboxing, and today I'm unboxing the game Black Orchestra, which is a game I knew nothing about. I didn't even know it existed. It completely passed me by. And this is, as far as I know, the second edition, which came out this year. Yeah, it says here second edition. The first edition, I believe, was published in 2015, 2016. And in this game, you as the player, and it's a solo game, or you can play it multiplayer, will play as members of the Black Orchestra, which is the Schwarze Kapelle in German. And that was a group of mainly members of the Wehrmacht and the Abwehr, and there were one or two civilians, but mainly members of the still existing German aristocracy who tried to overthrow Hitler in a plot and kill him. And as we all know, they didn't succeed. It wasn't until 1945 that Hitler died and he took his own life. All of the attempts, and there were plenty of attempts on Hitler's life, starting as early as 1939 when Georg Elser tried to blow him up in Munich, were unsuccessful. And in this game, you essentially try to kill Hitler. I'm really wondering if this game will ever be available in Germany, because I have seen some of the iconography, and since of course you have the SS runen and so on, I think they will have a hard time importing this into Germany, because a lot of this iconography is actually forbidden in Germany. As people who have tried to play ASL and import ASL into Germany, and whose parcels were opened by, if they come from the United States, every so often they will be opened up in customs, because they do regular checks, obviously, and some people have reported that their stuff was essentially destroyed. So what we've got here is the rulebook. This rulebook can also be downloaded from Board Game Geek. I've read the rules. They are pretty straightforward. It's kind of you play the game by rolling dice, by getting cards, by walking around the board, and collecting items which you can use in your plot. This is the, I guess, player aid card. Here you've got your chits. You've got different items that you place on the board. You've got 8 different items, 3 of each: explosives, weapons, maps, signatures, keys, intel, badge, poison. And here you've got the Hitler on the one hand and his 5 deputies, and these are basically their standees, and they can be in a space, and if you start your turn on a space where one of these or any of these also happens to be, you suffer the consequences. So if you are in the same space as Hitler, your motivation drops by 1. If Hess is also in the mix, you would also have to discard a card. Goebbels would ask you to cancel your ability. Bormann means you can't conspire. Himmler will increase your suspicion by 1. Göring will make you discard an item. So we've got cardstock, sturdy, looks good, smells nice, nice finish. Oops, and I've already punched one of my tokens. Incidentally, just to be on the safe side, let's just put it into one of my token trays, because you can't be without them. Here we've got the board, which is nice. It's a nice finish. It's fairly sizable. And the game is played over 7 phases, which essentially plot Germany's rise and fall during the Second World War. And depending on which phase you're in, different parts of the map are accessible to you, because obviously in the beginning You only have, in phase one, you have Berlin and parts of Germany, and even Austria and Switzerland are not available in phase one. So you have Hannover, Nuremberg, Adlerhorst, Tannenberg, Munich. And then in phase two, you get Vienna, after the Anschluss, of course, and the Berghof in the Salzkammergut. That's where Hitler had his holiday residence, as it were. And you have different places in locations in Berlin. You've got the train station, and you've got the Ministry of Propaganda, das Zeughaus, Reichskanzlei, Chancery, Sportpalast, Gestapo, Hauptquartier, and the Deutschlandhalle. And then as of phase three, you get a couple of eastern areas. You have Prague, Posen, Warsaw, Wolfschanze. Obviously, there was somebody who tried to blow him up there, and they were unsuccessful. Anlage Süd, which to my mind sounds like a concentration camp. And of course, here you've got Auschwitz, Treblinka, Riga, Stockholm. And then going further, you have Wasserburg up there. Yeah, I don't know. There must be a Wasserburg in the... yeah, that's probably Ostpreußen. Borisov, Smolensk, Wehrwolf. I've never heard of this one. I have no idea what that is. And then over here, you've got Wolfsschlucht and Paris. And depending on which phase you're in, some areas become accessible. Others that were accessible in the past are no longer accessible. So, for example, Wolfschanze is not accessible once you're in phase 7, simply because, of course, the Red Army would have moved in, and the East was pretty much being liberated at the time. Different areas grant you different advantages or disadvantages. So, for example, if you go to the Ministry of Propaganda and you hand over a signature, so you have collected an item that is called signature, and you have it on your card, you go there, you reduce your suspicion by 1, but then you have to discard this item. You cannot use it for a plot. And as a player, you have 2 important stats. One is suspicion. That is, how suspicious is the Gestapo of you? And motivation. How motivated are you to kill Hitler? And depending on how motivated you are, you can either succeed at a plot, or you can't even engage in a plot if you're not motivated enough. And of course, places like the Auschwitz concentration camp or the Treblinka concentration camp will increase your motivation, because you see what's going on and you feel you need to put a stop to it, and you feel that killing Hitler is going to put that stop to those to those activities. But it also increases your suspicion, because why would you, as a member of the Abwehr, which is the German intelligence service at the time, go nosing around in a concentration camp where you have no business whatsoever? So you're probably spying. So in a way, it's you want to be sure that you have enough motivation to be able to launch a plot. You also need a plot card. You need the relevant objects that you may have to use, and you need Hitler to be in a certain place, and usually you have to be there with him. So, you know. But if you are too suspicious, then the die rolling at the end, when you try to make your plot come off, gets more difficult. And in addition, we also have the military support. And the higher the support is for Hitler, the more difficult it is for you to make your plot a success. And I think that is a very thematic thing, because while Hitler was at the height of his military career, and while Germany was doing well in the Second World War, there were lots of Germans who were very supportive. And then to convince people to plot against him is, of course, a lot more difficult than it would be at a stage when, you know, the so-called Allied powers the Allied powers are closing in on the Axis powers, and basically are taking away everything in the East more and more. And also over time, more and more things that have been happening at the Eastern Front are exposed. You know, you have the Weiße Rose in Munich and in Bavaria that is spreading information. This information reaches Berlin. So more and more people realize what's going on. So again, his his support in the military, and that is very important. Hitler was supported by the military. The military was very happy with him, or lots of people were. But Hitler did something that was different from other leaders in German history, and maybe even general history. The soldiers in modern Germany, like, you know, I would assume probably in the United States as well, take an oath. And they swear allegiance to the country. They swear allegiance to the flag. They don't swear allegiance to a person. Hitler made all soldiers take an oath on him, which meant that during Unternehmen Walküre, it was very important for all of the conspirators, who were all army members, to kill Hitler. It wasn't enough for them, in their view, to have him arrested. He needed to be dead, because only with him dead were all the soldiers freed from their oath and could act against the situation in the country without breaking the oath, which would have meant that they would have been killed and well, tried, you know, court-martialed and then killed. You know, that was because they had sworn an oath on Hitler. But once Hitler was dead, they were released from their oath. So that's a very important part of this as well. But as, of course, the war was being lost, morale in the troops went down and was destroyed completely. So the support within the military for Hitler was dwindling. And of course, it was then easier for conspirators to find co-conspirators, to get access and so on and so forth, or even just to get somebody to turn a blind eye. Oh yes, I do have this really, really heavy parcel that I want to put under his desk. It's fine, you know, it's just folders with information, and no, ignore the ticking kind of thing, you know. So the map itself also contains, the board itself also contains, I'm just going to adjust the camera a little that you can see this. It's one of the maps that I really like, and one of the boards, because it has all of the information of what you need to do on your turn, what your permissible actions are, how to use your actions as well on the board, so you don't always have to refer back to the rulebook. So as you know, I love this. Here we've got the cards. I have seen some of the cards, and I have to say I was pretty impressed. The cards all use pictures from the time, contemporary photographs, so I'm sorry about the glare. And they also use key events. So for example, here we've got Lebensraum. That was a that was a catchphrase. It actually goes on. It's not just Lebensraum, it's Lebensraum im Osten. So it means we're invading the East because we want to have space to live for the German race, as it were, the Aryan race in the East. So that's where this comes from. This is, yeah, this is definitely, I actually believe that this is Auschwitz. Then you have historical events that happened, like Blomberg-Fritsch affair, in which, or you have, there's another one, which is the Anschluss party, which is when Austria became part of the Deutsche Reich. Then you have another card that I saw was the party rally in Nuremberg, and so on and so forth. So in a way, if you're familiar with Ottoman Sunset, for example, these State of Siege games by Victory Point Games, this is a lot like it. You have real historical events that are presented on cards that drive the narrative. Also, the map, of course, is a little bit like one of the State of Siege games, only you don't have armies encroaching on you, but you have a map that you navigate around, and it does certain things for you or against you. Here we've got the dice. Oops. Plastic. They have like this kind of yellowish old paper feel to them, which is nice. There should be 10. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. Yeah. And you have different things on them. You have the eagle. You have 1, 2, 3, which are actions that you can take. And then you have this crosshair symbol. Now, crosshairs are important. When on your turn, you have usually got 3 actions. You can take 1, 2, or 3 dice. And if you take 3 dice, you basically use all 3 dice, which means you're using all of your 3 actions, and you roll the dice, and then you get a result. So everything that's a number is an additional action. So if you have, so I rolled 2 2s, that gives me 4 actions that I still have after I've rolled the dice. And then we have 1 crosshair, and the crosshairs are important when you roll them on your action because they fill up the so-called descent track. And as you complete this track and you have 3 crosshairs, and they basically don't go away after you have completed your turn, the next player can add to them. But once this is up to 3, all dice are returned to the supply and you choose one of the following effects. 1 conspirator raises their motivation by 1, or lower Hitler's military support by 1. So you can use this to influence either your own motivation or a co-player's motivation, or you can decrease Hitler's support. Military support, I should say. And the black ones, they are bad. I think when you roll for, let me see, they count when you play, when you try to pull off a plot. So the more you have of these, the more likely you are to fail. But normally when you just roll them as an action, I believe they don't do anything. They just mean you essentially rolled a blank and you forfeited this action. So if you take 3 dice for your 3 actions, you roll 3 eagles, that's your turn. Here we've got the little meeples. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 meeples, because you can have 5 conspirators. You can play with up to 5 characters. And you have wooden cubes, which you use to fill every conspirator's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I've got a red cube. I don't know what this is for. Oh, that's for the military support. And you basically have different, as I said, stats on your conspirator card. So you have your avatars, as it were. Let's see. I think this is well in the frame. So here we have Admiral Wilhelm Canaris, Abwehr. He's basically, Abwehr is his affiliation. He's a member of the German intelligence service at the time, and he's the head of the Abwehr, so he's actually the boss. Here you can see that he can have up to 4 items. 4 items only if you have 1 or 2 players. Here is his, so here you've got the blurb, you find out a little bit about him, and his life story. The back is simply black with a Deutsche Reichsadler. Then you have his motivation. Everybody starts at timid. So this means you can only hold 2 cards in your dossier, so you build a tableau. You don't build a hand, you build a tableau. Skeptical, dossier limit is normal, so for 2 players, 1 player, 2 player, it's 6 cards. Motivated. You can use your conspirator ability, which in his case is discard an item to lower 1 conspirator's suspicion by 1. So I can lower my item as Canaris to reduce somebody else's suspicion by 1 who might be attempting a plot. So that's really helpful. Committed. You can attempt 1 plot in your dossier. And reckless. Certain plots require reckless motivation to attempt, but you can attempt reckless plots. So obviously, as we saw, you know, if you go to places that increase your motivation, you know, it'll go up. And also we have the suspicion. We have low, medium, high, and extreme. Extreme means if there's a Gestapo raid, you will be imprisoned. Then there is an interrogation. If all players are imprisoned at the same time, you lose the game. There are actually, I think, 3 ways to lose the game and only 1 way to win it. And down here, You see I'm just going to lift this up so that you can see it a little more clearly. You can see on the suspicion track the eagles. And the eagles determine if your plot succeeds or fails. Let's say we have a plot which requires, for which you get 3 dice, okay? We are very lucky. Hitler's military support is at a lowly 2. So it tells us that we need 2 successes, and a success is a crosshair symbol, so that we succeed. So we roll the dice, and we rolled a 3, which doesn't count at all. We rolled 1 eagle, unfortunately, and we rolled 1 crosshair. So what happens is we required 2 crosshairs. We didn't succeed. However, we were at suspicion level medium. We only had 1 eagle, which means the plot didn't come off, but nobody noticed it had happened. So we can go on. If we had been at high with 1 eagle rolled, we would have been arrested straight away because, you know, the plot failed and we have been detected. If we're at medium or low, we roll 1 eagle. The plot failed because we only rolled 1 crosshair, but it wasn't detected, so we're safe for 1 more round, or more than that. So this is how the game plays. We have Admiral Wilhelm Canas. Let's just go through the people we've got. We've got Dietrich Bonhoeffer, who's also a member of the Abwehr. He was a secret agent and also a theologian, very famous. We have General Hans Oster, also a member of the Abwehr, deputy head of the Abwehr, General Ludwig Beck, Wehrmacht chief of the general staff. He was one of the men of the 20th of July. He killed himself rather than be shot by a firing squad. Karl Gördeler, he was a civilian, politician and businessman. And he was executed in 1945 after giving away several of his co-conspirators. Erich Kort was also a civilian diplomat. He was a diplomat, foreign office, and he survived and worked as a university professor after the war. General Friedrich Olbricht, he was a member of the Wehrmacht, chief of the General Army Office, and was also a member of the plot of July 20th, 1944. He was also executed only hours after his plot failed. Klaus von Stauffenberg, of course we all know him. Wehrmacht Colonel Ersatzherr, and he was also, I believe, he was the guy who tried to blow him up in the Wolfschanze, wasn't he? Yeah, he was a member of Unternehmen Walküre. Yeah, and I think, I think that was the Wolfschanzen-Attentat. Henning von Treschow, Wehrmacht. Also July 20th, and he killed himself. Yeah. So these are your possible choices of conspirators you can play and hopefully kill Hitler. So last but by no means least, I'm going to open one of the decks of cards just to look at the card quality, because that's something that a lot of people always inquire about. What's the card quality like? So far, the quality of the components that I've seen is very, very good. Let's see what we've got here. They are a glossy finish, and they are quite thin. They feel different than your new FFG cards. They don't have this kind of relief surface. So these would be, let me see, yeah, these are phase 6 cards. And these are phase 5 cards. There is a slight difference in the color. I don't know if this comes out on the film, but this is how it's supposed to be because you want to be able to tell them apart really easily. You could also, I guess, sleeve them in 7 different sleeve colors if you've got them. Here we've got interrogation cards. Okay, and this is the one where you win. We killed Hitler. So most people actually do not get to use this card because most people fail. This game is quite hard to win. Which, of course, is very thematic because nobody actually succeeded in killing Hitler. So tell us what you know. So these are the interrogation cards that you draw once you've been imprisoned, and you have different things that you can do, and you have to make a decision. You can only ever take one of the 3 options, A, B, or C, that you can fully fulfill. If there is one condition that you can't fulfill, you have to try the next one. If you can't do any of them, C is always your option where you roll a die. You can always do that. So these are your interrogation cards. Whoops. Tell us what you know. That is your, here you've got the first, and again 5, the cards from the 5th phase. So there are 7 phases in the game. When you put together the decks during actual play, you don't put out all the cards for each phase, but you always remove 2 and you don't look at them, so you don't really know what is going to happen, because 2 cards will always be removed from each phase. Here you've got your, I guess, they are character cards which you draw from. I don't know what they are actually called. So these would be also your plot cards, so security clearance while in your dossier. Illegal cards in your dossier are ignored during a Gestapo raid. This is also where you would get your plots. There have to be more because otherwise this is not working. So here we've got more, here we are. So this is phase 1. Here we've got more of these cards, high-ranking informant. These are actually, I believe, the illegal cards. If you get caught in a raid with these, you have an issue. You have a problem, even if your suspicion is low. And here we've got actual plots. So here we've got the lone gunman. Requirement elements are: you are in the same space as Hitler. You are at reckless motivation because you will be drawing attention to yourself big time. You're going to probably be listening to him speaking at a rally or somewhere, and you draw a gun and you fire at him. Everybody will have their eyes on you. You will definitely be caught, so you really want to be reckless. Optional elements: if you're in the Wehrmacht, you get an additional die. If you have a weapon, you get an additional die. And if you've got a badge, one of the eagle symbols that you roll will not be counted. So this is how the plots actually work. So you want to have these cards shuffled into these cards so that the plots will come up at different points in time. And you can have more than one plot possibility, but obviously no more than your dossier size allows you to have. If for whatever reason your dossier size shrinks, because for example your motivation goes down, you have to discard cards. So here we've got the last one. If I can open it, and I can't. Here we are. These are more phase cards. So here we've got phase 5 again, phase 4, 3, 2, and of course 1. So all in all, I've only seen one partial playthrough by Doug Herring, because he gave us, I guess, 3/4 of a playthrough, and then for some reason either I missed the 4th part, or it wasn't uploaded, or I can't find it anyway on YouTube. It plays fairly quickly. It plays in about 45 minutes. It's deadly, so you can assume that you will not win. And again, like I said, it's very thematic. A lot of people might go, oh yeah, but I mean, you prepare all the plots and then at the end of the day, it's down to a die roll. Yeah, but you build a pool of dice that makes it more likely or less likely for you to win. But I think it is very thematic because obviously loads of things could go wrong. You know, in one case, they tried to blow up Hitler and Hitler just left the room 5 minutes early. You know, it can happen. So I think that that's not a problem. And I think that this is actually very thematic. I will be doing playthroughs. One word about the theme. Obviously, I read about the game and a lot of people said, oh yeah, well, you know, the problem with the theme is you will be playing somebody who, with the exception of this one guy who became a university professor after the war, they all died during the war. Yeah, that's true. And most of them died because they were trying to kill Hitler. Most of them died directly as a result of plotting against Hitler. So you have to be aware that in real life, there was no happy ending for any of these people. If this is a problem, like if you feel this would take away from your enjoyment of the game, the theme itself is not enjoyable. It's not an enjoyable theme, but I think the game is an enjoyable game. And it is thematic. So I'll talk to you soon and I wish you all a pleasant evening. Bye-bye.